A very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight on Gravitas as the Trump tariff tensions continue, India holds a strong hand. What are New Delhi's economic, strategic and geopolitical options? We focus on this and tell you all that you need to know as the tariff storm continues to rage. That's coming up next, but here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. With Trump and Putin slated to hold direct talks in the coming days, what lies ahead and where do things stand right now? We get you a comprehensive report decoding the crucial geopolitical developments. What is Israel's 5-step plan to seize Gaza? We get you the complete story with the reactions. All this and more coming up.
Do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved.
भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा।
Increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it.
A tariff storm is raging. New Delhi is arming itself for economic counterfire. Donald Trump's sudden 50% tariffs on Indian goods have jolted decades of diplomacy. While talks continue, New Delhi is quietly loading its arsenal of economic, strategic and geopolitical options. If America wants to squeeze, India is ready to press back hard. New Delhi is faced with a stark choice: bend to Washington's will or retaliate hard with powerful measures of its own. Let's explore how India holds a strong hand with 5 potential moves that could inflict serious pain on the US economy and its geopolitical ambitions. First, the defense juggernaut grinds to a halt. India can freeze multi-billion-dollar US military contracts from advanced fighter jets to cutting-edge drones. Boeing, Lockheed Martin would watch their Indian big-ticket purchases vanish. Second, America's pharmaceutical lifeline gets severed. India supplies nearly 40% of America's generic drugs, the medications keeping millions of Americans alive and healthy. A strategic export halt would actually trigger nationwide medicine shortages, sending healthcare costs spiraling. It would hurt Indian exports, but it could look for alternative markets as Indian pharma is in a high demand around the world. Third, India stands to reduce its import of US crude oil and rough diamonds, 2 vital commodities, while Trump is pointing out India's oil imports from Russia as a reason for the additional 25% tariffs. The fact of the matter is that crude oil imports from the US increased by 30% in financial year 2024 to 25. And India also imports $2.5 billion worth of rough diamonds from the United States. And if India decides to stop the imports of these 2 commodities, it would hurt the American economy. New Delhi can source these from alternative markets. Fourth, the nightmare scenario unfolds. China, Russia, India forging an economic trinity. This access of economic power could bypass dollar-denominated trade entirely in a way, accelerating America's currency decline while creating alternative financial systems that could sideline Western institutions. Things are moving thick and fast. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, spoke to the Russian president just a short while back. And this comes a day, remember, after India's national security advisor was warmly welcomed by President Putin at the Kremlin. President Putin would also be visiting India later this month. That's not all. New Delhi has announced that Prime Minister Modi would be visiting China for the SCO summit. And Beijing issued a statement saying that he is warmly welcomed. Now, along with South Africa and Brazil, India is the founding member of the BRICS alliance. The Brazilian president also held a long conversation with the Indian Prime Minister. Fifth, the Quad alliance could crumble into irrelevance. India is scheduled to host the Quad summit this year. India giving a cold shoulder to the Quad would be a blow to the strategic centerpiece of US policy. US tech mogul Sam Altman warning that India will overtake America in the field of AI, the artificial intelligence market. A sample of not only India's recognition as the world's fastest growing economy, India is and will remain one of the biggest markets. It could be the most consequential handshake of the year. The stage is being set. Trump and Putin face to face again. Only this time, the stakes could not be higher. Trump and Putin are slated to hold direct talks in the coming days, and if reports are correct, their meeting could happen as soon as the 11th of August. It's been a dramatic day in global diplomacy, in fact. The Russian president was busy on the phone today, first with the Indian Prime Minister, then with the Chinese president. And these calls came just hours after the Russian presidential aide, Yuri Yoshikov, confirmed that Moscow and Washington had agreed on a Trump-Putin summit. What's the plan? Sometime next week, but the final date depends on how the talks unfold in the run-up. And here's the trigger. On August 6, special U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff visited Moscow and held a 3-hour meeting with Vladimir Putin. Now, according to Fox News, the summit may happen in Rome on August 11. But the Russians are not sold on the venue. According to TASS, which is Russia's official news agency, Rome is out of the question. The Russians, it seems, do not want Europe to be the stage for this meeting. In fact, it makes sense because the timing of this meeting could not be more critical. US President Donald Trump has started a trade war. He has become frustrated that he has not been able to stop the Ukraine war. And as a result, he has turned that frustration inward in a way towards his allies, it seems. India, which has continued to buy Russian oil, is facing a massive 50% tariff from the US. Trump claims India's purchases are fueling Putin's war machine. But if this move was intended to twist New Delhi's arm, it's not working. India has not buckled. Instead, New Delhi has remained in dialogue with Russia, engaging BRICS partner Brazil, even finding common ground with China in the face of Trump's trade tantrums. Indian officials have made it clear that Indian companies are free to source from whoever they want. But as is evident, Trump's tariff war might just be his way of trying to pressurize Putin through India, using New Delhi's Russia ties to push Moscow into a corner. And India is not alone, by the way. China, though granted a brief extension, is also on Trump's radar. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi had this to say after speaking with Putin. Just hours ago, he tweeted, I'm quoting here, had a very good and detailed conversation with my friend, President Putin. I thanked him for sharing the latest developments on Ukraine. We also reviewed the progress in our bilateral agenda and reaffirmed our commitment to further deepen the India-Russia special and privileged strategic partnership. I look forward to hosting President Putin in India later this year, quote unquote. On China's side, President Xi Jinping laid out his position, and according to Reuters, Xi Jinping told Putin that China will continue to promote peace talks and that it is glad to see Russia and America remain in contact and improve relations. The two sides, China and Russia, also reinforced their mutual trust and strategic coordination, pledging to work closely on the upcoming Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin. What about Europe? According to European analysts, Trump-Putin meeting is the best shot at peace in years. They say that if the meeting does not go ahead, war on Ukraine will face a very bad situation.
If this meeting next week does not take place, we at least are confronted with a very bad situation for Ukraine, because it does mean that the Russian offensive goes on from the air and on the ground, which does mean that the cities will be bombed every single night, as long as the Russians have the drones and the means for that, which they do have. For the Americans, in particular Mr. Trump, it does mean that he can't go home with the laureate and say, I brought peace to Ukraine, and which does mean that he has to do something now against Russia, which he tries to avoid since his presidency.
And the Polish Prime Minister also weighed in. Listen in.
There are certain signals, and I also have an intuition that perhaps a freeze in the conflict, I don't want to say the end of the war, but a freeze in the conflict is closer than it is further away. There are hopes for this. The Ukrainian side is very keen for Europe, including Poland, to participate in the planning of this future ceasefire and subsequently peace.
What about the country at war, Ukraine? Well, the president says he is very cautious but optimistic. He says that talks should also involve Ukraine.
Everyone obviously knows for sure that the key decisions in Russia are made by one person, and that this person is afraid of sanctions from the United States of America, and that it is right for Ukraine to be a participant in the negotiations. Russia's war is against Ukraine, against our independence as the embodiment of the independence of every European nation.
Now let's talk numbers. Trump's deadline for a ceasefire deal expiring on August 8th, that's today. And if Putin does not agree, the US is ready to slap 100% tariffs on any country buying Russian oil. But Putin remains unfazed, it seems. He believes that Russia is winning. According to reports, Moscow does not think more sanctions will do much. What with 3.5 years of war, countless economic penalties already in place, and here's what's happening on the ground here. Russia has captured 502 square kilometers of Ukraine in July alone, and that is some of the biggest gains of 2025. In total, Russia now controls about a fifth of Ukrainian territory. There's been heavy casualties on both sides. Even Russian military bloggers say that the summer offensive has been slow and bloody, especially in dense urban terrain. But Putin's goal is clear: complete control of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and then only then will he talk peace. So can Trump deliver the breakthrough that the world is waiting for, is the question. And will Trump pass Putin's test?
Well, we don't want to keep it. We want to have a security perimeter, and we don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern it properly. That's not possible with Hamas.
There's a growing storm of concern from within Israel, from the Hamas as well, globally, over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan for a full-scale Gaza takeover. World powers are warning that such a move could deepen the humanitarian crisis, derail any hope of peace, and return Gaza to the killing fields of the last 2 years. Hamas termed the takeover plan a new war crime, blatant coup against negotiations, and a continuation of genocide, quote unquote. The group accused Netanyahu of using the hostages as political leverage, quoting, "This criminal adventure will cost it dearly." That's what it has warned. Netanyahu and the government do not care about the fate of their captives. They understand that expanding the aggression means sacrificing them, quote unquote. On the ground in Gaza, the death toll has crossed 60,000. Almost the entire population has been shunted out of their homes. Life has turned into a nightmare. Netanyahu indicating there is more to come, it seems. Back home as well, opposition is rising. Protesters have taken to the streets demanding a hostage deal and an end to the war. Hostage families echoing those concerns, urging negotiation over force. Even Israel's own military leadership is raising red flags. The army chief, Eyal Zamir, has reportedly told Netanyahu that occupying Gaza would be walking into a trap. He warns of soldier exhaustion and the high risk to the remaining hostages, many of whom may not survive a full-blown offensive. From China to the UK, from Turkey to the United Nations, the message is clear. Any expansion of Israeli military control in Gaza would be a dangerous escalation. Global voices are calling for restraint and urging Israel's allies, especially the United States, to exert pressure on Netanyahu's government. The present division of control over Gaza shows that Israel Defense Forces already control more than 75% of the strip. Palestinian control continues over Gaza City, Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, extending to parts of Khan Yunis and Al-Mawasi in the south. Netanyahu has outlined a multi-phase plan for Gaza. In the first phase, Israel would issue an evacuation notice to the residents of Gaza City to allow time for establishment of civilian infrastructure in central Gaza. This phase is expected to last several weeks. Israel would then launch a military offensive in the second phase. Reports said the military campaign was expected to last between 4 and 5 months and involve 4 to 5 IDF divisions. The plan is to expand to the camps in central Gaza, where the IDF has barely maneuvered so far. The civilian population is expected to be further pushed towards the south of the strip, while maneuvers take place in areas where hostages are believed to be held, with efforts towards avoiding any harm to them. A full occupation onslaught also translates not just to the loss of civilian lives in Gaza, but in addition to the toll and the losses within the IDF. 898 IDF soldiers have been killed in the last 20 months. 54 have committed suicide, 25 since the beginning of this year. 3,770 soldiers have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and of the 19,000 soldiers injured, roughly 10,000 are experiencing psychological symptoms. With international pressure mounting, deep divisions within Israel, and no clear exit strategy in sight, Netanyahu's Gaza plan faces scrutiny on all fronts. The world is watching and waiting for a way forward. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Coming up next, we're getting you the latest from Uttarakhand in India, where it's a race against time to look for survivors. As Donald Trump prepares for face-to-face talks with Vladimir Putin, we're getting you a detailed report on the Russia-Ukraine war with the latest from the battlefield, where Russia has been advancing rapidly in eastern Ukraine. We also get to the latest on the wildfire situation in the United States. All this and more coming up. On to India's Uttarakhand, where the race against time to look for survivors continues. Days after the deadly cloudburst wreaked havoc, the Indian Army has deployed sniffer dogs and drones to search for those missing after the deadly floods. Flash floods and mudslides swept through homes and roads, leaving behind a trail of destruction. In Uttarakhand's Dharali village, nearly 400 people have reportedly been rescued, earth-moving equipment and excavators deployed for rescue work. Dog squads at work in that intense mission to rescue survivors. Large-scale rescue and relief efforts underway. The multi-agency relief operations are taking place amid challenging terrain, with the Indian Army in close coordination with the Indian Air Force, SDRF, NDRF and others continuing to lead large-scale rescue and relief efforts in the flood and landslide-affected regions. Disaster relief and rescue teams continue to evacuate the trapped people, with around 70 helicopters pressed into action to ferry critical supplies, equipment, rescue personnel, airlift stranded civilians from the isolated areas. The National Disaster Response Force deployed 18 teams to assist in the rescue operations. The Indian Air Force assets also have been pressed into action following the floods. Chinook and helicopters of the Indian Air Force, along with C-295 AN-32 transport aircraft evacuating civilians, airlifted 20 tons of relief material.
It's been impressive how the Army has been providing assistance to families, delivering relief efficiently. Everything transformed drastically in an instant. You've come this far, and the situation has been quite challenging.
Excavator machines also being used to reach people trapped in the debris. Additional Army columns, along with Army tracker dogs, drones, logistic drones, earth-moving equipment moved to hasten the efforts. Military helicopters were flying in the essential supplies, as well as picking up those stranded after the roads were swept away, even though rain and fog made flights difficult. Earlier in the day, the Uttarakhand Chief Minister reviewed the relief and rescue operations in Dharali and gave the necessary instructions to the officials on restoration of road communication and electricity, as well as food supply. And earlier, the Chief Minister said the flood was caused by an intense cloudburst of rain and that rescue teams had been deployed on a war footing. On Tuesday, remember, a deadly cloudburst swept away a large part of the Dharali village with mud, debris and a rapid flow of water, leaving at least 5 dead, many still missing. In tragic scenes, several people could be seen running before being engulfed by the waves of debris that uprooted entire buildings. The Himalayan settlement has been buried under a 500-meter wide stretch of debris and thick sludge. In some places, the mounds of rubble reaching up to 50 feet high, tall enough to completely bury a 3-story building. Experts say that it could take months for the region to return to normalcy. On to Myanmar now. Fresh research suggesting Myanmar's military is using advanced European technology to protect its military drones from interference. According to a report by the UK-based Conflict Armament Research, Myanmar military obtained anti-jamming technology made in Europe through a Chinese company. The researchers also reportedly documented downed military drones in Kaya State in the country's east. What did they feature? advanced navigation modules that protect the drones from jamming and signal spoofing. Besides that, evidence of similar technology used in Chin State near the country's western border has also been found, implying that efforts have been made to weaponize the UAVs for precision strikes. And this is despite the Myanmar military being under extensive European Union sanctions and an EU arms embargo since the early 1990s, reportedly. And the latest revelation prompting calls for sanctions against the junta to be tightened further. What's more, as per reports from an independent conflict monitor tracking global conflicts, Myanmar now ranks third globally for the number of drone events in a conflict zone after Ukraine and Russia. In the past, the Myanmar military has been criticized for conducting brutal and indiscriminate aerial campaigns and bomb both resistance forces and civilians, reportedly. In fact, Myanmar's war from the sky has been building up only since the start of the conflict in 2021, when the military seized power in a coup. And over the past year or so, there has been a notable shift in the military's aerial combat strategy, with the junta heavily invested in incorporating jets, helicopters, paramotors and drone technology in war arsenal to beat opposition groups at their own game of popularizing such weaponry. Even as further restrictions were imposed after the 2021 military coup, with the United Nations also passing a resolution calling on states to prevent the flow of arms into Myanmar. However, campaigners say the sanction measures remain inconsistent across the EU, impacting enforcement, thus bringing Myanmar one step closer in the global drone arms race with the latest upgrades. But the reality being, all of this coming at a grave human cost. For the first time in nearly 90 years, Japanese warships docked in New Zealand. It's a symbolic development, part of Japan's wider push to build military ties in the Pacific, especially at a time when strategic alliances in the region are being redrawn. Take a look.
Not only with New Zealand and Australia, but also with many Pacific Island countries. So, main goal is free and open.
Users of ChatGPT's free version woke up to find the latest version of OpenAI's chatbot, GPT-5, on their phones. In an unprecedented move, GPT-5 has been offered to all users, not just those on paid plans. And the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, hailed GPT-5 as the best model in the world. Microsoft CEO, meanwhile, announcing the integration of GPT-5 across platforms like Copilot and others. Not to be outdone, Elon Musk replying to Nadella's X post, warning that OpenAI could eat Microsoft alive, quote unquote. GPT-5 is OpenAI's first unified model that basically consolidates the task-specific abilities of different series and combines that with the speed of previous GPT series. It's like a one-stop shop for everyone that can also accomplish tasks for users, eliminating the need to create an AI agent. OpenAI CEO has said that GPT-5 excels in writing, coding, finance, even healthcare tasks. It's been trained to give safer, more accurate responses with over 5,000 hours of safety testing. The model is now less likely to hallucinate or make stuff up. Interestingly, GPT-5 can choose to decline to answer a question if it detects risk to the user or others. Altman described GPT-5 as having a team of PhD-level experts in your pocket, quote unquote.
Before, maybe it was like talking to a college student. Real intelligence, real utility. But with GPT-5, now it's like talking to an expert, a legitimate PhD level expert in anything, any area you need, on demand, that can help you with whatever your goals are.
OpenAI also demonstrated vibe coding, a feature that lets users build apps just by writing a simple prompt. In one test, GPT-5 built 2 language learning apps in seconds with flashcards, quizzes, progress trackers. The model is now rolling out to ChatGPT's free Plus Pro and Team users, with enterprise clients to follow next week. On to the US now. In America, the H-1B visa controversy kicking up a storm of sorts amid job cuts and hardline immigration policies. And now the latest US payroll data painting a rather worrying picture for foreign nationals working in America, especially Indians, who in fact have been living under that cloud of uncertainty. Just days ago, Republican Congresswoman calling for ending the H-1B visas for Indians, accusing them of replacing foreign jobs. Green's statement came amid the ongoing political debate around work visas and job opportunities for international talent in the US market. While her comments have sparked concern amid Indian working professionals and students in the US universities, the latest data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics reportedly suggesting that of all sectors, Indian techies could be hit the hardest. Let's just break this down for you. In August 2025, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics reportedly downgraded the previous job estimates, stating that close to 300,000 jobs reported for the months of May and June had not materialized. In July, the figures hit a new low, with only over 70,000 new jobs added, thus marking the weakest performance since the COVID-19 pandemic since 2020. Clearly, America is on the verge of a job meltdown in a way, further dampened by economic gloom. But that's about Americans. Sectors like tech, hiring most numbers of skilled immigrant professionals, more specifically and mostly Indians. According to the National Foundation for America policy, Indian nationals received 72% of the H-1B visas in recent years. And top firms are readjusting their employment policies reportedly to keep up with the firing spree. And there's more. As per Bloomberg, more than 200,000 tech workers were laid off in the US between November 2022 and January 2023. Of these, almost 30 to 40% affected were Indian IT professionals. Close to 80,000 Indian workers, H-1B and L-1 visas, have faced job losses since late 2022. However, it's not just job losses that are drawing attention, but also some stringent measures around it. Reports suggesting in a recent regulation, many H-1B professionals are left with just 60 days to find a new employer post being laid off and before being forced to leave the country reportedly, leaving them with just these options, basically to either find a new job or leave the country under deportation proceedings, thus completely upturning the 60-day discretionary grace period as per the previous norms. And this is a huge dent in a way to the ambitions of the Indian nationals who over the years have also made up the largest group of H-1B recipients, accounting for 72% of all approvals reportedly, followed by Chinese nationals at 12%. But what does all of this really mean for the United States, which remains heavily dependent on Indian diaspora and global tech professionals for fueling innovations in the realm of tech, AI, and the proof is handy. Just last month, Meta's new AI research arm was revealed to be led entirely by immigrant researchers, including experts from India, China, South Africa, the UK, Australia, each with advanced degree holders, high-level experiences and specializations. Difficult to match if Americans with unequal credentials were to replace them, perhaps. Will such a sweeping stroke realistically set America on the back foot in its global technological war against superpowers like China? And can it turn the clock back on its pool of talent built meticulously with special hires world over, something which needs immediate thinking? And the United States is fighting large plumes of the fire which erupted in Los Angeles on Thursday. In fact, one of the most massive wildfires that the U.S. has ever witnessed. It's not just the United States. Its neighbor Canada also dealing with unprecedented crisis. Take a look.
America is under the grip of a deadly flame. A Grand Canyon of smoke has enveloped California. What started as a brush fire in mountainous area of Los Angeles rapidly spread through the Los Angeles County on Thursday, forcing thousands of evacuations within minutes, and quickly becoming one of the largest wildfires U.S. has ever seen. It burnt a part of LA's Los Padres National Forest, wreaked havoc in nearby Ventura County, and has led over 50,000 to evacuate from their homes. Firefighting crews are working in steep, inaccessible terrain as they battle heat wave-like conditions. Nearly 900 homes in northern Los Angeles remain under threat. Flames race through rugged canyons, ranches, and forest land. Authorities are still investigating what caused the Gifford to explode. But it is not just Gifford that Americans are worried about. United States neighbor is dealing with a burning crisis which is not limited to its borders. Fires blazing in Canada are causing hazardous air quality levels across United States. Over 750 wildfires are burning throughout Canada, with more than 500 labeled out of control. Over 16 million acres of land have been scorched by blazes, making this year's wildfire season 1 of Canada's worst on record. Smoke from the blaze has crossed into the United States, bringing hazy skies to multiple states and major metropolitan areas, including New York City. August and September are typically the most dangerous months for wildfires in the state. Scientists say warming global temperatures have greatly increased the chances of extreme weather with more frequent and intense wildfires. But as climate crisis comes to the fore, the question of man-made blazes are raising eyebrows. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
As Donald Trump prepares for face-to-face talks with Vladimir Putin, Russian forces are seizing critical Ukrainian territory at a rather alarming pace. Ukrainian resistance facing its gravest test in a way as the Russian military advances. The next weeks could reshape the entire conflict's trajectory. More in this detailed report.
The thunder of artillery never stops across Ukraine's blood-soaked eastern front. Russian war machines grind forward with renewed ferocity, claiming ground that has cost thousands of lives to defend. In a devastating blow to Ukrainian defenses, Russian troops have captured Chasiv Yar, a strategic hilltop position in Donetsk that commands sweeping views across the battlefield. This high ground, once Ukraine's watchtower over enemy movements, now serves Putin's advancing armies. On the other crucial battlefront in Pokrovsk, the situation is grim. Russia has opened new fronts, unleashing heavy firepower to break through Ukrainian defenses. Kyiv says that over 100,000 Russian soldiers are deployed there.
From our side, we can see that the artillery has become more active and there has been a noticeable increase in enemy infantry movement in this direction. The artillery has begun to fire more frequently. It seems that more artillery has been brought in. The situation is complicated. We will just hit them harder, that's all. Yes, we are detecting them and destroying them whenever possible.
The minimum result is at least a cessation of active hostilities. This will be the first sign of dialogue and negotiations. This is not happening at the moment, and all the talk about it is only intensifying with attacks. Perhaps they understand that they have little time left and are trying to capture even more in order to speak from a position of greater strength at the negotiations.
Russia's aerial campaign has evolved into something more sinister. Jet-powered unmanned killers now streak through Ukrainian skies. Their deadly efficiency demonstrated on the 31st of July when 31 civilians perished in a single strike in Kyiv.
They just wanted to live. Just live a normal, simple life. They were expecting their second child, so they just wanted to live a quiet, normal life. Go somewhere, travel to see something. Well, war changes all plans. War destroys all plans.
Ukraine fights back with characteristic defiance. Kyiv's drones penetrate deep into Russian territory, striking transport networks and energy installations with surgical precision. Oil refineries burn while power grids flicker as Zelensky's forces extend the war's reach into Putin's heartland. Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, citing what it called threats to its security. Kyiv and its Western allies cast the invasion as an imperial-style land grab. Trump had vowed to end Russia's war in Ukraine, but almost 8 months into his second term, it remains an unfulfilled promise. The big question, can the Putin-Trump talks bring a halt to the grinding war? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
If you're an American and planning to retire anytime soon, we've got some news for you. In what can be called a major investment shakeup, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order enabling access to alternative assets for millions of Americans who invest in 401k and other defined contribution retirement plans. What kind, you ask? Well, Trump's order basically opens up avenues for including private equity, real estate, cryptocurrencies, and other alternative assets in workplace retirement plans, thus marking a sweeping shift that could unlock access to the roughly $12 trillion defined contribution retirement market. And until now, most plans held familiar assets, stocks, bonds, cash-like investments. But via this executive order, Trump instructed the Labor Department to revise guidance for money and property managers and regulations, thus paving the way for alternative investments to enter retirement portfolios. This is being touted as a major shift from the previous policies, which handed such access privilege primarily to the wealthy and government workers and investors. And by far, possibly the biggest move by the Trump administration to bring private assets to defined contribution accounts, and also reportedly in a bid to provide increased retirement security. Important to note here, this also comes amid the Trump administration's push to embed in crypto in the American economy quickly and broadly. From taxes to mortgages to retirement planning, Donald Trump wants to cover as many bases as possible. And experts are saying a move like this opens up the doors of more investment options to Americans who previously felt limited with less versatile options to choose from. Just for context here, Americans have trillions invested in employer-sponsored plans. The move could open up $12 trillion in defined contribution plans, including roughly $9 trillion in retirement investment for private asset managers. And this sparked some quick moves already, with firms like BlackRock planning to launch a retirement fund next year with a 5 to 20% allocation to private equity and private credit. Another inviting factor is the potentially higher long-term returns. Such investments might attract on a frequent basis. While many are touting this to be a golden opportunity for Americans to do more with their hard-earned money and life savings, experts are cautioning that this might come with its own set of challenges, as some of these alternative assets are hard to be converted into cash, plus they are costly, with fees like 2% management plus 20% of profits. They also lack transparency and bear high litigation risk, especially for long-term retirement savers. Our next story is about Instagram. It's been known as a creator's favorite in a way. It does have endless opportunities, a place where brands roll out products. It's a digital world where you also get a chance to interact with your favorite celebrities. This is a world where real meets real. But what exactly are the downsides? Are there any? Well, Meta believes in innovation, Threads, Reels, and the Instagram app constantly is rolling out reformed interfaces and tools. But its brand new feature is now leading to a lot of question marks. Instagram has a new feature which can share your exact time and location in real time. Now, you should think twice before enabling that feature. Starting this week, Instagram has a new map view feature. It's easily accessible at the top of the direct message inbox. This map confuses two forms of location sharing. First, it includes locations you have actively tagged in recent Instagram stories or posts. Second, the app guides you to opt for a new form of passive location sharing. This second option is dangerous because whenever you do open your application, your friends could view your exact location. Not just your friends, your frenemies, your former manager, perhaps your former partner, you name it. Anyone can get access to your location if that happens. Many users were also shocked to see their own locations on the Instagram map. The social network's head has clarified that your location will only be shared if you decide to share it. Sharing your real-time whereabouts with friends sounds like it's harmless, but what if things get out of control? What if someone uninvited spots you? What if this very feature puts you in danger? Those are the kind of questions that have been doing the rounds. Now, this is a shift for Instagram. It's going from an intentional sharing experience where you decide when and what to post to an always-on background sharing experience. So how can you take control of your privacy and your data is the immediate question. To ensure you are not on the Instagram app, if that's what you want, select no one under who can see your location in its settings. And even better, you could stop Instagram from collecting location data about you by going to your phone settings and turning off location for Instagram entirely. In Brazil, indigenous activists are accusing the United States of crossing a line. As Brazil prepares to host the COP30 climate summit, activists are calling out Washington's support for those accused of plotting a coup and slamming new US tariffs as political retaliation. What's their message? Respect the democracy the way they respect yours. Take a look.
I think this is ridiculous. Every country must respect another's sovereignty. Brazil never interfered in US politics, so why are they interfering in ours? Defending people who plotted a coup is also a coup.
Ele está tentando defender pessoas que queriam dar golpe.
In Cambodia's capital, over 1,000 Buddhist monks took to the streets to pray. They marched silently to a temple to honor soldiers killed in the deadly border clashes with Thailand. With chants and offerings, the monks sent out a clear message to the world. Cambodia wants peace, not war. Take a look.
This is a camមួយបង្ហាញទៅដល់ពិភពលោកថាប្រជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាព្រះសង្ឃនៃប្រជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាទិដ្ឋភាពនៅថ្ងៃនេះយើងចង់បង្ហាញឲ្យឃើញថាទាំងព្រះសង្ឃទាំងបរិស័ទហ្នឹងគឺមាន
A Texas-based company has accused Apple of stealing its technology to create Apple Pay, its highly lucrative mobile wallet. The company has filed a lawsuit against Apple in a federal court in Atlanta. The plaintiff claims that Apple Pay's key features are based on technology developed by Corfire, which Fintive acquired in 2014. The lawsuit alleges that in 2011 and 2012, Apple held multiple meetings with Corfire and even entered a non-disclosure agreement to license its mobile wallet technology. However, instead of honoring the NDA, Apple launched Apple Pay in 2014. The legal filing claims that Apple's secure element design, NFC implementation and trusted service management layer are carbon copies, they claim, of Fintive's proprietary architecture. Fintive has also accused Apple of trade secret theft by luring its employees away and using the same technology in Apple Pay. The lawsuit also accuses Apple of leading an informal racketeering enterprise by using Apple Pay to generate fees for credit card issuers such as Bank of America, Capital One, Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase. In the lawsuit, Fintive calls Apple's conduct a case of corporate theft and racketeering of monumental proportions, adding that its technology helped Apple generate billions of dollars without Fintive receiving any compensation, they allege. The lawsuit seeks compensatory and punitive damages for violations of federal and Georgia trade secrets and anti-racketeering laws, including the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly known as the RICO Act. This is not the first time Fintive has sued Apple. On August 4, a federal judge in Austin dismissed a related patent infringement lawsuit after rejecting some of Fintive's claims. Despite the dismissal, Fintive intends to appeal on the existing record. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gampir, signing off. Have a good weekend. Thanks for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
अबे रिक्शा वाले पैसे ना लेना मैडम से, भाभी है तुम्हारी।
You are mad, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। As Ranjana re-releases in Indian cinemas, we tell you why the film's team is not happy.
I've sometimes been called the most famous comedian who nobody knows.
Meet world-renowned stand-up comedian Papa CJ.
Maybe you have to let go of who you were.
And just like that, bid adieu to the much talked about Sex and the City reboot.
We're still gonna have to call it date night in our 50s?
All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Israel's army draws a red line. Top generals say no to Netanyahu's call for a full Gaza occupation as Netanyahu pushes for total control. Hezbollah's ultimatum. Missiles are ready, targets locked. Hezbollah warns of an all-out